Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Outpatient Rights. This is our March webinar. And I want to thank you all for coming today. I want to thank Tom O'Clair for his help with the technical support here. And I would like to just go over a little brief orientation for people who are new to webinars. Due to the volume of participants that we have to keep the line muted. So the only voice you'll be hearing today is my own. And I'll try to make that as from the diaphragm as possible for you. Please feel free to ask any questions via the chat function on the webinar control panel. If you have a question about something that's on a specific page, please note the page number, and then when we break for questions, we can scroll back to it and we can refer to it. We currently have 55 people on the webinar right now. You're not able to see the other people here, but on your screen, but we have 55 right now. We'll probably have more as we go on. When the webinar ends, you will get a short survey. If you could please take the time to fill that out. We are taking the feedback that we get seriously, and we do have webinars scheduled for the rest of this year, but some of them are close. We do have some ideas about other webinars, topics that you want to see. Please put them in there. Also, if you would like to mail you a certificate of participation, you can just, there's a spot where you can check off yes. Please put in your mailing address, and we'll mail that to you. And we've already had a question about attachments. So I did send out attachments earlier in the week, and I know that some people have registered after I had sent out the attachments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out all the attachments again, probably not today, but probably like early next week. Be out for the next couple of days on the road. So send them out to people this week. So everyone will get a copy of all the attachments that we need today, including the PowerPoint itself. We will be recording the webinar today. They'll all be archived. All of the webinar series will be archived up on the web. Last month we did the peer specialist listening forums, and that's up on the web right now for people if they would like to refer to it. You can go to the website, or if you want to, you can send me an email. I'll link to it. Okay, so let's get started. Today is a presentation on the right to adult outpatient. All outpatient programs licensed or run by the Office of Mental Health in the state of New York. Okay. So today's learning objective will be covered in the presentation. We're going to go over the civil rights of an adult person in an outpatient program. We're also going to go over the regulatory rights of an adult person in an outpatient program. We're going to go over who you can contact to make a complaint if you feel your rights were infringed. And although it's not up here, we also have some other documents that we'll be going over that help people stay in power when they're experiencing problems, things like advanced directives. So this is actually taken from the outpatient booklet, the Outpatient Rights booklet, and this is from our commissioner, Michael. One of our important roles at the State Office of Mental Health is to offer meaningful information to help people make choices and decisions about mental health issues. It is our hope that an understanding of the rights of outpatients will foster respectful relationships between people who use mental health services, family members, staff people, and members of the community. So I think that's a good place to start with framing this. I'm going to just go over a couple of things here to kind of put things in perspective and to help frame it. Most of the documents here are pretty much, well, they're all public, public domain documents. So you can get them off the web, and I'll also be sending them to you. But I just wanted to frame it a little bit here on why it's important for advocates and for recipients to know the rights. So the first thing I wanted to touch base on was the Stanford prison experiment. which I'm not sure how many people know about this, but this was done by Dr. Phillips and Bardo. I believe it was in 1971, but it's in the 70s. There was a lot of aviator glasses and feathered hair with the people who participated in it. But it was basically students who had no particular behavioral problems or any issues of any kind. In fact, they were chosen for their lack of having any kind of background that was out of the ordinary. So they flipped a coin, and half the students became mock prison guards, and the other half became prisoners. And what they were looking for was to find out, what was some things that happened and systematically in a prison. So quickly, this experiment grew out of hand. The prisoners suffered, and they accepted sadistic and humiliating treatment from the guards. The high level of stress progressively led from rebellion to inhibition. And by the experiments then, many showed severe disturbances. In fact, it was supposed to go on for 2 weeks, and they had to shut it down after 6 days because things just become so brutal. After a relatively uneventful first day, a riot broke out in the second. The guards volunteered to work extra hours and worked together to break the prisoner revolt, attacking the prisoners with fire extinguishers without supervision from the research staff. They also had a closet used as solitary confinement for prisoners that they were never supposed to put them in there for more than an hour, and some of the prisoners who were particularly rebellious were put in there for several hours. So the reason I bring this up is that, I believe that people are generally good and generally trying the right thing. But in certain systems, in certain situations, good people can make some very bad and poor choices. And we do hear a lot of complaints about programs of staff. And what's important is for us to all know what our rights are, not allow people to stand up for ourselves, to not allow people to trample our rights, and that when we do feel that has happened, we try to resolve it internally, the program, and it doesn't work out. We need to know where we can go as advocates and as recipients, where we can go to get help, so this kind of stuff doesn't happen. There's been a lot of people before us. I want to just put this into context. There's been a lot of people who have come before us who have really blazed a lot of trails to help. Okay, I just got a note here. There's been a lot of people who have blazed the trail for us, and it's made our lives a lot easier. And we have to remember that there are generations that are going to come after us, and we have to leave the soil fertile for them so that the seeds can get planted and that they can also prosper as well. So that's how I see our responsibility. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about to help frame this is the concept of the wasteland. So T.S. Eliot wrote a poem called The Wasteland, based on the Holy Grail. So the theme of the Grail romance is that the land, the country, the whole territory concerned has been laid waste, and it's called the Wasteland. And what is the nature of the wasteland? It is a land where everybody is living. This is my emphasis, is that where everyone is living an inauthentic life, that they're doing as other people do and doing as you're told, with no courage for your own life. And that's another reason why we want to know what our rights are. I've only seen programs where people are living that authentic life, and it really keeps us disconnected from other people, and it keeps us away from our recovery journey. And that part of recovery is standing up for ourselves, taking ownership and responsibility for our life, and moving on to follow our dreams. So one other thing that I just wanted to mention too, and why this is so, let me get back there, why this is so important personally for me, is that there have been a few programs that I've been to, or that I've been in, and in one of the programs there was a staff person who was particularly abusive, and none of the management knew about it. So it was a housing program. you know, the recipients there were really at the it was like a reign of terror at first. And what happened was there was an incident that we found out about and investigated and got rid of the staff person. And then it turned out that there was all these other things that had been going on for a while that nobody had said anything about because they were afraid of, you know, systemic cover-ups. They felt trapped, quite frankly, and they didn't feel like there was anybody outside of the organization that could help. So when we found out about that, I really took that very much to heart. No one should ever feel trapped like that. No one should ever feel isolated and abused like that, especially people who are in our care, in our system of care. So really, today's presentation is really just an extension of what I did, or what we did at that program, which was to educate people about their rights, educate people about the grievance procedure, educate people about what was going on outside, retrain staff, really to try and make it much more open community. Okay, so let's get into it. Gloria Steinem quote up here is, "Power can be taken but not given. The process of the taking is empowerment in itself." So I know this is about right, but it's also about empowerment and other things. So the way I look at it is, by arming people with information, we can increase the knowledge of what our rights are and where to go to get help with making sure our rights don't get violated. And there's an animation. There's some animation. I usually use animation on the PowerPoints, but I had to do it for this one. We can increase the knowledge of our rights and consent to treatment as an informed consumer. We can empower ourselves and create partnerships, and hopefully with all of this, it will lead to better outcomes and better lives for recipients. So these are the programs that we're going to be talking about. We're only talking about outpatient programs that OMH licenses. And this is only for adults right now. So we license clinic, continuing day treatment, also known as CDTs. We license day treatment for children. We license intensive psychiatric rehabilitation treatment, and that's also known as IPRT. We license partial hospitalization and personalized recovery-oriented services, also known as PRO. Now, a lot of these rights also extend to inpatient, so there is a lot of overlap with the regulatory and civil rights. Excuse me. So there is a lot of overlap with that, but again, everything today is certainly applicable to outpatient programs. So let's start with regulatory rights, as defined by OMH for a licensed program. The right to freedom from abuse is treatment by employee. That's kind of a given. The right to a reasonable degree of privacy, including bathroom privacy. The right to an individualized service plan and a full explanation of the services provided, and the right to participate in the development of your individualized service plan. My experience has been that most people don't even know they have a service plan, or if they do, they didn't have much input into it, just told to sign it at 3-month intervals. This is certainly an opportunity for people to have a say in what their dreams are, what their goals are, what they like to do. So I would encourage anyone who is involved in any of these programs to take a look at that individualized service plan and see if it reflects your wishes, your desires. You have the right to be informed of the provider's grievance policies and procedures, and the right to bring any questions or complaints to the director of the program or the organization listed at the end of this presentation. One of the things that I know has happened is when someone first gets admitted to a program. I know that people have been in programs after they've just gotten out of the hospital, or even if they haven't just gotten out of the hospital, some people are still it's still very overwhelming with all the paperwork that you have to go over all at once. So sometimes people just sign things without reading them. So if there are any providers out there I would encourage you to review grievance procedures, review rights periodically with folks, and if you have stuff there, I would encourage you to get a copy of the rights and the grievance procedures, so you know how to file that. You also have the right to receive clinically appropriate care and treatment suited to your needs and skillfully, safely, and humanely administered with full respect for your dignity and personal integrity. You have the right to be treated in a way which acknowledges and respects your cultural environment. Okay. So there are limitations to these regulations. Here they are. They may be restricted, but only in a written order by a physician, and that any such restriction must be put in your record and must be clinically justified, and there must be a specified date for its end. So it can't just go on indefinitely. And the rights cannot be limited as punishment or for the convenience of the staff people. That has all the time, as we know. But you have a right. Okay. So the next thing is access to records. You must be given an opportunity to request access to respective clinical records. We encourage people to write their own records. So after one of the things that we're advocating for in PROS with people there is to have the recipients of services write in their own charts and write up their own progress notes and their own notes in the chart. So the law does allow some limitations on the access based on clinical justification. Some things can be held back if the clinician feels that it may be harmful to the person. But we would encourage open access to records for people, to their own records, obviously. A program can impose a reasonable charge. The charge cannot exceed what these services actually cost the program. And in no case can a program charge more than 75 cents per page. Now, if you disagree with some part of your record, you can submit a written statement challenging the information in the record to be permanently attached to the record. With problems or complaints, you have the right to information on how to make a complaint. So that's the grievance policy. Every program should have a grievance policy, and you should have a copy of that, or a recipient should have a copy of that. A provider of service must give a notice of recipient's rights to each person upon their admission, and post the rights in a conspicuous location. It should be out in the paper, or some place where there's lots of traffic. And if you have a complaint, you should follow the agency's written grievance procedure. Because if you bring it up to, LMA, if you bring it up to wherever you bring it to, the first thing is what have you done to resolve it in the program, and what kinds of things have been done. So it's good to start, and then see if you can get a redress of your grievance at that point. Now, barring guardianship or other legal restrictions, you have the following civil rights. So the other things were regulatory rights that we're talking about. And those are regulations by OMH, covered by the OMH regulations. So these are civil rights, which is different. You have the right to register and vote in elections. Even if you're inpatient, you still have a right to register and vote in elections. You can vote by absentee ballot. And that can't be circumvented because of inconvenience for staff or anything. You can apply for permits and licenses. You can take civil service tests and apply for jobs and be appointed without discrimination if you qualify. And under the law, you have the right to be treated confidentially with respect and dignity by all people. And oftentimes, the complaints that we get here at OMH, they are just that, bad feelings. Not necessarily bad feelings, but bad feelings. It drives people because they've been disrespected in some way or disempowered in some way. More civil rights. Treatment or access to programs may not be limited or denied because of race, creed, color, sex, national origin, age, marital status, or which are only. You also have the same right as other citizens to designate healthcare property or prepare an advance. We'll go over those a little later on. One more civil right. This is very important to me, so I put it on its own separate little bullet slide. The fact that you are receiving psychiatric treatment does not mean that you are mentally incompetent. You are generally considered legally competent unless a judge has ruled that you are incompetent. So, receiving psychiatric treatment does not mean that you are mentally incompetent. So, there's been a number of times when I've seen staff people turn into surrogate parents and treat people like children who cannot make their own decisions. And as far as we are concerned at recipient affairs, people have a right. Everyone has made bad decisions in their life. People have a right to take risks. There's what they call the dignity of taking risks. This is how we learn and grow as people, not just people with mental health problems, but people in general grow. They make choices, and then they evaluate those. So people cannot take that away from you just because you're receiving psychiatric treatment. So here are some organizations that can help. Obviously, we have the New York State Office of Mental Health. These are the numbers for the customer services line. We also have the New York State Commission on Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities, and we'll be going into their brochure a little bit. Another organization that we have is Families Together in New York State. And this is a nonprofit-run organization that strives to establish a unified voice for children with emotional, behavioral, and social challenges. We have New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. It's a nonprofit civil rights law firm that strives for social justice in partnership with member law firms, corporate law departments, and other organizations. NYLPM helps underrepresented people develop legal strategies to serve their vision for themselves and their communities. And we'll be taking a break shortly for questions. The Urban Justice Center, the Mental Health Project. Tens of thousands of New Yorkers with severe mental illness cycle through hospitals, homeless shelters, and jails each year. And the mission of the Mental Health Project is to break this cycle by forcing our legal, health, and welfare systems to support our clients' efforts to recover and to live independently. Another organization is the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law. And what the mission of the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law is to protect and advance the rights of adults and children who have mental disabilities. The center envisions an America where people who have mental illnesses or developmental disabilities exercise their own life and have access to the resources that enable them to participate fully in their community. We also have PAMI, Protection and Advocacy for Individuals who are mentally ill, and they are regional. So here's two of them, and we'll also be going over their brochure briefly. Here are the other two regions, Hudson Valley and North Country, and Long Island. And again, I'll be sending out a copy of this PowerPoint to people. We also have mental hygiene legal services. And from what I understand, and I could be mistaken, but from what I understand, they primarily deal with inpatient. But they have different places. Okay, so other resources is JCO, the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations. That's another place where you can call for complaints. And to be an effective self-advocate, we need to know what our rights are. We need to work towards partnerships and systems that, because as I said, we have a group of people. So for instance, let me put it this way. Sometimes we have one person call up and say they don't want this, what happened to them. They feel like it's happening. So if you have a lot of people calling up about a particular program and they're always explaining the same thing that's going on, that's a way to change the system in that particular area. So it's our job as advocates, excuse me, is to leave the ground fertile for the next group of people, so we can keep pushing each generation. So we have full rights, full inclusion, full equality in okay. So the other thing too is when we start to advocate, we want to clearly define what action or what outcome we are seeking. That really helps a lot when you're also on the other side of this too, which I find myself hearing complaints to resolve. So that really helps. That helps out a lot. No end-user agencies grievance throughout the process. As I said, we want to seek resolution at the earliest possible level and to know what outcome is available. As I said before, no one should feel trapped. No one should feel like they're living in a bubble, and that if some kind of abuse is going on, either with an individual or systemically, like an Abu Ghraib kind of thing, there's some systemic culture that is fostering abusive tendencies or disrespect, then it's important to know what outside. So we're going to go over some of those things right now. But before we do, I wanted to see if we had any questions. And I must be reminded to repeat the questions because you may not be able to hear the question.
We've got a couple here, Tony. In some programs, consumers with substance abuse victims are drug screened with the same-sex staff in the room with them to prevent alteration of the sample. How does this interact with consumers' rights to privacy?
Okay, so the question is that in some programs, you need to
Have a same-sex staff present.
right. You need to take a fee for drug use.
Correct.
Staff at a same-sex staff with you, and so how does that affect with privacy? That affects with that and privacy. And it does say a reasonable degree of, in the rights book, it does say a reasonable privacy. I don't know if it says absolute privacy, so that would be something to take up. And if it's a particular concern for you, I would say to try and resolve it there, and to follow this process that you so that to pursue it.
Yes. From page 6, when you said that you licensed, does a person have to have a degree behind them to get licensed? And how do I learn more of it?
Page 6. I think we are talking about programs, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is about licensing. And I understand about individual license.
Yes.
So this is a license for a program. Okay. So they would have to file a prior approval. Yeah. Prior application. It's called the R process. That's how you get a license for the program. And then they look at it goes through like knowledge and things like that. Yeah, there are also individual licenses like permissions and things like that. We actually have something from their website. Around different licenses like psychologists and social workers and things like that. So I'm going to give you a website to go through for state aid. So, alrighty. So we have another one. And do civil rights include sexual orientation or preference? I think regulations. I think it said something in here in the regulatory rights that it does, but I don't know about. I don't know about the civil rights. I don't know if there's an actual law in the books about that, and I apologize. Okay, so treatment or access to programs may not be limited or denied because of race, creed, color, sex, national or age, marital status, or disabilities which are unrelated to treatment. So I think you could read in there. I don't know if there's ever been any challenge to that, but you could read into it around marital status, same-sex marriages, things like that. And certainly, from a cultural competence perspective, we would want to respect people's choices, so, and people's sexual preference. Okay, so no more questions? Okay. All right. No more questions at this time. Okay. So I'm going to break from this and go to some other documents here. And if people are having trouble reading the document, please let us know, because I've only used PowerPoints. So I've never used other documents. So the first document today is psychiatric advancement. It's known for psychiatric, not for medical. There are medical ones as well. So we're not going to go through all of these. I'm just brought up I just wanted to highlight a few things for people. This is a very powerful document. And I think it's grossly underutilized. This is a way for people to write down their preferences, their choices, what's important to them around treatment, around doctors, around medications, around other procedures, ahead of time, before a crisis happens where a person could be deemed legally incompetent. If that happens, or if someone is involuntarily put in the hospital, these are ways to get your preferences honored and respected. Correct. It was a mental health person of a living will, is what someone said. So what I've highlighted here is, if you are concerned that you may be subject to involuntary psychiatric commitment or treatment at some future time, you can prepare a legal document in advance to express your choices about treatment. This document is called an Advance Directive on Health Decision Making. So there was a couple of things I wanted to highlight. And, you know, in our state we have, and maybe in the nation, but certainly I know in our state, ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, you know, the shock, very highly, this isn't a pun, it's a highly charged issue. There's a lot of emotions. So what we know is, or what we have set up, and this is because of people's advocacy, is that we have set up, we've made it more difficult for people to get involuntary ECT. So there is a review committee, and on that review committee, they would look at something like an advance directive. If somebody put on that advance directive a preference either for or against ECT, then that would be honored. So this is a very important document for people who have strong feelings about ECT. And for any advocates or any people out there who are concerned about that, I would strongly encourage you to fill out something like this. You can also put instructions about hospitalization, alternatives to hospitalization, things that help you with medications, as I said, ECT, emergency interventions, which include seclusion, restraint, and medication. What are your feelings about that? What are your preferences about that? And experimental studies. So this is a way to get, and cultural practices. Yeah. So a couple other things here. Should I see a mental health professional before signing an advance directive? You know, for your advance directive to be valid, you have to be competent when you sign it. So to protect yourself against any claim that you are not competent when you signed your advance directive, you can ask a mental health professional to conduct a mental status exam and note in your medical record file that you are of sound mind at the time. Ask for a signed copy of this note and attach it to your advance directive. This is not absolutely necessary, but can head off future challenges. And who should have copies of this? Your treating professionals should have copies of your advance directive. Your agent, or healthcare proxy, if you appoint one, and each alternate agent you name should have a copy, and you should also consider giving copies to family members, close friends, the hospitals, programs where you might be taken in an emergency, your managed care firm if you have one, and your other service providers. If you make changes, be sure to let everyone who has a copy know. For this reason, you'll want to keep track of who has copies, and there's a form for doing this attached to the signature page. So if you travel, make sure you have a copy with you. Keep the original in an easily accessible place, and then there's like a little note here to keep you involved. And then just wanted to go to that section number 3 here, around desires. I really just wanted to highlight that a bit for people. Right here. As you can see, my preference regarding ECT or shock treatment. So there's just a nice little section right there for people to put out what their feelings are about that, so they can be honored here in New York State. Okay. All right, and I think that's it for this particular document. All right. So related to this document is the healthcare proxy. So this is the healthcare proxy for New York State. And let me get this a little bigger here. Okay. And the healthcare proxy, this form, it gives a person that you choose as your agent or healthcare proxy the authority to make all healthcare decisions for you, including the decision to remove or provide life-sustaining treatment, unless you say otherwise in this form. Healthcare means any treatment, service, or procedure to diagnose or treat physical or mental conditions. So this one is for both physical and mental. And then even though you have signed this form, you have the right to make healthcare decisions for yourself as long as you are able to do so. And treatment cannot be given to you or stopped if you object, nor will your agent have any power to object. So when I first read that, I was confused. So in other words, what that means is that until you are unable to make decisions for yourself, so if you are in a coma, or you are deemed legally incompetent, or you are involuntarily hospitalized, then you have the right to make your own decisions. So this does not come into effect until you are no longer able to make your own healthcare decisions. And advocates may want to be a healthcare proxy for someone. I know I would much rather have my healthcare proxy. So again, I just wanted to highlight that you can put in here, make sure if you have a healthcare proxy, they know what your feelings are. We also check with family members, any guardians, or anyone in the person's circle around antipsychotic medication, and again, electric shock therapy or ECT. So make sure that they know what your feelings are. And, okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So this one is fairly new. This has to do with access to mental hygiene records in New York State. And I just want to go over a couple things here. People do have access to their records. I think this has to do with Jonathan's law. So a qualified person can ask for records. And a qualified person includes an individual receiving services, his or her legal guardian, or a parent, spouse, or adult child who has authority to provide consent or care for treatment, for care and treatment. And then who should the request for records be directed to? And what I wanted to highlight here is that sometimes what happens is people make a complaint, they bring something to the attention of OMH or the investigative body, and then they want to know what the outcome was. So there is a mechanism for that. So if OMH, OASAS, or the CQC, that's the Commission on Quality of Care, conducted an investigation, requests for records and documents pertaining to that investigation should be directed to the appropriate state agency. And then you've got the addresses there and the proper contact person for it. Okay. That helps bring some closure to these things. All righty. Let me close that out. This document is a little dated, but it's still valid. So even though it's got the techie's name on it, it's still valid. I took it off the Department of Health website. And it's New York's medical conduct programs, how to choose the right physician, and how to tell us if you don't, what is somewhat grammatically awkward. So the reason I put this in here is if somebody wants to make there's other things in here like how to do prep work on choosing the right doctor, but also how to report a problem with your physician. Like I say, most people are trying to do the right thing. Most people are good and trying to do the right thing. We need to have these things in place to protect ourselves because sometimes bad things happen. So this is what you can report. There's some things that you can report and some things that are just there. They cannot be charged with misconduct. So a physician may be charged with misconduct for being impaired by alcohol, drugs, physical or mental disability, abandoning or neglecting a patient in need of immediate care, promoting the sale of services, goods, appliances, or drugs that exploits the patient, refusing to provide medical care due to race, color, creed, or ethnic origin. They cannot guarantee a cure. Performing professional services not authorized by the patient, willfully harassing, abusing, or intimidating the patient for grounds for misconduct, ordering excessive tests for treatment, failing to make patient records and x-rays available to the patient or another physician on request, permitting unlicensed persons to perform activities which require a license, and practicing the profession with suspended or inactive license, and revealing personally identifiable facts, data, or information without consent of the patient, except as authorized or required by law. So those are all grounds for misconduct, and you can file with state office, the professions here. What not to report, and this is where it's kind of unfortunate, is complaints about a physician's communication skills, attitude, or bedside manner are also not generally under the jurisdiction of the board, nor does the board have any authority over such office practice issues, long waiting for rude staff. While the board does not condone rude or uncaring behavior, such actions do not constitute misconduct. So although it doesn't constitute misconduct, it's still a violation within the regulatory rights of people in OMH license programs. So we do say that people need to be treated with respect and dignity. So the place to bring a complaint around that would not be to this agency, but to OMH or CQC, which is an oversight agency for us. Now this sets us up for the next document. So for complaints and information about other professionals, we would go to New York State Ed, and that was related to the question that somebody else brought up on licensing. So this is where you can talk if you are looking for either if you're looking to get a license, to get some more information on that. There you can see the list of professions. You can verify it, whether or not your clinician or your psychologist or your person. The other one was only for doctors. This one is for professionals, like social workers, clinicians, psychologists, etc., and nurses and so on. So this is where you would go to file a complaint for them. You can also verify, if I could go to that for a second, you can also verify, what the person's license via here. So there's a link to it right there where it says online license verification. So you can see there's a number of different places. It's regional where you can call. Okay. All right. Okay. And next document here is PAMI. So what is protection and advocacy? This is another agency for people that you can reach out to. So individuals with a diagnosis, let me blow this up a little bit here. Individuals with a diagnosis of serious mental illness have the same rights and responsibilities as any other members of the community. Congress recognized, however, that some individuals with serious mental illness, and please forgive the language, it's not my language, could be vulnerable to abuse, neglect, or discrimination in the exercise of legal and civil rights because of the nature of their disability, and responded by creating the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness program. PAMI provides a network of legal and other advocacy services to support individuals with serious mental illness in securing their rights. And then we'll go to the next page here. So who's eligible for PAMI services? Again, I think this is mostly for people in facilities. So any individual with a diagnosis of serious mental illness may be eligible for PAMI services. The program places a priority on serving persons with serious mental illness who live in facilities which provide some kind of care and treatment, but it also serves individuals with serious mental illness who live in the community. And then there are regional offices as well. Yep, we're going to take another question break after we do these documents. Then that'll be the end of our program. Well, I've got a couple of announcements, advertisements for some upcoming webinars. So, this is really a wonderful guide put out by the CQC, the Commission on Quality of Care, on self-advocacy or advocacy in general, if you're an advocate. So it's got some tips in here for families and for people who want to start the process of complaining and filing a grievance. So I just want to go over a couple of things that are really important, because I've been on both sides of this. I've been someone who's filed complaints, and I've been someone who hears complaints. So these are things that I always encourage people to do, is have your information and a pen and paper ready by the telephone. When you reach the correct person, and it may take a few calls when you're interacting with your bureaucracy, that happens. Ask for their name, title, and telephone number. So it's really important to get keep records of who you speak to. Take notes about what the person said and follow up on your complaint after a reasonable amount. So when you're doing written stuff, for written contact, print, type, or email your complaint. Handwriting is hard to read sometimes, and you don't want that to slow down your complaint, or you don't want anything to be misunderstood. So, and again, as I said before, state how you like to see the problem solved. State what it is that you're looking for. And then with follow-up, if your complaint has not been resolved in a certain amount of time, you will want to follow up with the person to whom you first complained. And always take note of who said what. Keeping track of all that will be very helpful for you. And this is the brochure for the New York State Commission on Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities. And what they do is I'll go over a couple of things. They train individuals with disabilities, their families, and other advocates in exercising their rights and services. They provide training and informational materials to interested parties and the general public on a range of issues, including disability awareness, human rights, diversity, assistive technology, and reasonable accommodations. And they administer the Circuit Decision-Making Committee program, which is a fairly unknown program. The next couple of documents go over that. So, whose volunteer panels make decisions about major medical care on behalf of persons in the residential program. It's kind of a cool way for people to get involved with. A couple of examples of stuff that they've done in the past. These are common things that we see a lot. So a family was concerned when one of its members was discharged from a mental hygiene facility without proper preparation. Commission staff confirmed the family's fears, resulting in the facility instituting disciplinary action against responsible staff and new discharge policies. So, I mean, I know someone who was discharged from a hospital in the middle of winter, no shoes on, didn't have any shoes, which they don't do that anymore. So that's fine. A patient called the commission voicing concerns about the side effects of its medications. Commission staff contacted the medical director of the facility to relay the patient's concerns, and the medical director reviewed the patient's treatment plan, met with the treating physician, and called the commission to report that the medications would be adjusted. So here's a program. This is for providers to get involved with. And the next document is for people who would like to volunteer for the surrogate decision-making committee. When we had the CQC come and present at the recipient advisory committee meeting, probably about 6 months ago or 9 months ago, this was something that they had brought up, and there was a lot of interest from the people in the audience around it. So I wanted to just bring this up today because it does relate to rights. So the surrogate decision-making committee serves persons with mental disabilities, facilities, or programs licensed, operated, or funded by the Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities, or the Office of the Child, who do not have capacity to make informed decisions regarding major medical treatment and do not have a legally authorized surrogate to act on their behalf. So this is for people in our care who did not write up an advance directive, they don't have a healthcare proxy, and they don't have capacity to make healthcare decisions. So what they've done is they've created committees, these surrogate decision-making committees, view the notes and things. So it's not just the decision of one person to say, okay, now you need to have, this medical procedure done. You need to have some dental work done or something like that. So, I'm sorry, dental care is excluded from this. So there are some things that, for those of us who have been in that position or who have a great deal of empathy and understanding around that kind of stuff, this might not be a bad place for people to go to advocate and to help with the decision-making process to bring our perspective to it. So the surrogate decision-making program is an innovative program authorized by New York State as an alternative to the court system to obtain informed consent for non-emergency major medical treatment. The program serves persons with mental disabilities in a residential facility or program operated as or licensed by New York State who do not have capacity to make their own decisions and do not have a legal authorized surrogate willing and or able to make the decision on their behalf. So I don't think it's a very well-known program, so I wanted to publicize it a little bit. And then this is our last document, and then we will take some questions. Last but not least here is the Commission on Quality of Care for Persons with Disabilities Speakers Bureau. So they do have people that can come in and do trainings on a number of different areas. Legal, can teach people about investigations. This could happen at the facility. Again, good people can do some very questionable sometimes. Fiscal, life planning around advanced directives. So they can get into a lot more depth than what we did today. Today is more of just an overview and a general kind of thing. Now at the end here, I did call the place to verify that they were still, in operation, still doing stuff, and they are. But the number has changed, and the person has changed. So the person to contact is Karen Myers-Malcolm. She's the new contact person. And the number is, you could still reach them through 388-2892, but it's actually 388-2834 is the number. And again, if you just call up the general number, Karen Myers-Malcolm, they'll put you through the her. Okay. Alrighty. Now I may change this. Okay. So back to the slides over here, where to get more information. We just went through all of that. And then I'll do a couple of plugs here and then take some questions. So we want to be proactive as well. So right now we're in the process of reviewing the rights brochures that's inpatient and outpatient. So if you want to share any insight you have or have any suggestions, we've got some already, and that's great. The more information and the more feedback we get, the better. So if people could send that to that website or to that email address, that would be great. That's also the email address if you want to join our listserv around this and some other discussions, so we can get people's direct experience involved and incorporated into the policies, into the regulations as much as possible. So if you would like to be part of that listserv, please indicate that and we'll put you on it. And today's webinar was part of a series of webinars. March's webinar will be on cultural competence, and that's a training about cultural and linguistic competence as means of engagement to eliminate inequalities of services delivered and accessed. The training is for both providers and peers to assist those with providing truly tailored, person-centered care. That's going to be, again, the last Wednesday of every month is when we do the webinars. So it's the 25th from 1 o'clock to 2:30. The presenters are Letitia and Hector, and they're both good people. And there's the registration. This is also up on our website, up on the OMH website, under, I think, webcasts is the tab to go to. And then I'm going to leave this one up here because this one just came up. A couple days ago, I just set this up. So this is Common Ground in New York State. New York State is developing some programs, some tools around medications and helping people make better decisions around medications or effective decisions around medications, thinking about that. Pat Egan, I'm sure a lot of people know who Pat Egan is. She's going to present her Common Ground material, which is a web-based software program that supports recovery and shared decision-making during psychiatric medication consultations. So people use the software, peer-run decision support centers located in the psychiatric clinics. Pat developed the Common Ground approach, and it is currently being used in Kansas, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts. So in this webinar, what we're looking to do is Pat's going to demonstrate the Common Ground approach, and what we're looking for is this is primarily for peers and for recipients of services. We're looking for feedback from folks. So it's going to be another webinar like today. We're going to look for feedback via the chat thing, via the chat function on the webinar, so we can make it right for using that in New York State. So we really, this is a great opportunity for people to get their voice heard in something that's happening right now. So it's something that we just set up real quickly. So it's 2 weeks from today, same time, 1 o'clock to 2:30. To register, this is where we would go. I've got the link up there. You can write that down. This is not up on our website yet. So I'm going to leave that up there for people to copy it down, and then we'll take some questions now. And remind me to repeat the question if I forget.
Okay, in regards to the advance directive, if I'm hospitalized in another state, will it work in that state?
Well, based on the, thank you for, in regards to the advance directive, if I'm in another state and I have the advance directive, will it work in the other state is the question. And when you look at the advance directive, it hasn't been challenged legally yet. So, so that would be an interesting thing to happen. What would certainly happen is they would need to consider a person's advance directives. They would need to consider a person's preferences and things. And if they didn't, they would have to justify why they didn't. So that would definitely put you having more cards in your hand than the facility. So they would have to justify. They couldn't just arbitrarily. I would imagine that they wouldn't want to just arbitrarily, legally, wouldn't just arbitrarily do procedures not affecting what their preferences were. They wouldn't go counter to what your preferences were without some kind of major justification.
Is the advance directive a legal document that needs to be followed, or just an expression of wishes?
Yeah, as I said, it's not considered a legal document at this point, but it is a tool, so that it puts you in a position where you state what your preferences are, and it puts the facility in a position where they're going to have really good justification on why they would go against your wishes. If you filled it out while you were competent, and you filled it out as I had stated before, having a doctor say that you were of sound mind.
Can a RAP be added to the advance directive?
Yeah, I think RAP plans are kind of similar to advanced directive. So the question is, can a RAP plan be added to an advanced directive? So I think a RAP plan and an advanced directive are fairly similar because they're an expression of, no, I'm sorry, excuse me. I got confused. The RAP plan also has a crisis plan usually built into it, so I'm thinking of the crisis plan. I apologize. Certainly RAP plans could be included in with that, because it would have some things in there what people could look for on, when what we're like when we're well, what we're like when we're not so well. So those things are absolutely important. As much information as possible, and as much as we think about what helps us and doesn't help us is great. Things like seclusion and restraint, how it's helpful or unhelpful. And as much as information as we can give the hospitals, the better.
Does the document regarding IT records take the current HIPAA standards into account?
The question is, does the document, does the law around access to records take into account the current HIPAA standards? So I don't know, because that's a legal question that's beyond my scope.
Between doctors, HIPAA has no restrictions.
Between doctors, I'm told that between doctors, HIPAA has no restrictions. What I do know is that if HIPAA and New York State law are at odds, or not at odds, but if they're different, then you go with a more strict. So if you go with which other is more strict. So if the New York State law is more stringent or more strict, then you would go with that. Sorry, I have another question.
You mentioned the fact that advanced directives address psychiatric and medical needs. Does advanced directive also spiritual needs? What if a person is inpatient and they would like to participate in a certain spiritual ritual or receive advice from the administrator or whoever?
Okay, so the question was around advanced directives. And advanced directives, the way I presented advanced directives today wasn't about both psychiatric and medical. That was the healthcare policy. That was both. The advanced directives that I presented today was just about psychiatric. So the question was, does that take into account spiritual needs? Like if you have a particular ritual that you, for your spirituality, that you need to have accommodated. I think that falls, I don't know. I mean, certainly anything. I don't know all of the, I don't remember all of the specifics in there. I think it had to do specifically with just like treatment and advanced directives. But certainly you could put things in there around your spiritual needs. I think that that's a great question to ask at next month's webinar on cultural competence. I think it's a great question to ask them. They would probably know a lot better than I do. But anything that we can put in writing to people ahead of the crisis is certainly very helpful. It puts the staff people in a position they're going to have to justify why they would go counter to your wishes. So,
And an unrelated question.
I have an unrelated question.
how can staff motivate consumers when they just don't want to say or do anything, any activities? They just want to show up at their treatment plan and couch it.
Okay, so the question is, how can staff motivate people, recipients, who don't want to do anything? Or so I want to just reframe that a little bit. So I want to say, first of all, we can't get people to do anything people don't want to do. So the question is not whether or not people are motivated or not motivated. They may appear not to be not motivated. That's what I think is really a more accurate way of describing the situation, that people appear unmotivated. So, yes, it's kind of a little bit beyond the scope of this particular training, but I don't mind speaking. I would first thing I would say is I would refer you to actually Pat Egan did a wonderful thing. We can probably share that with you. It's called the Coke and Smoke syndrome. How to work with people who appear to be motivated, because most people are motivated. If people are showing up at your treatment center, why are they doing that? That would be a good question. Start becoming curious. It's wonderful to find out what are people interested in. And engaging people, and without judgment, and just engaging people in that kind of inquisitiveness, and becoming curious about what people do or did at one point in their life. So, knitting, Civil War, and getting people excited about, sports or whatever. Just getting people excited about talking about something. Just starting that conversation is really a wonderful place to start, and being genuinely curious, because I've met so many fantastic people, so many interesting and deep people who when I see them in the context of their program, they appear to be unmotivated. They are sitting doing much work, not in the program, and outside of the patient role, and in a different kind of relationship, and in a different role, just completely open up, transform. So, some of that is role, the learned role of patient is one of the things. So just trying to break out of that is something that I think would be helpful. Yeah, helping people find their passion and what motivates them to get up every day. So, yeah.
Okay, we've got to relate.
All right.
Speaking of outpatient rights, what are the steps being taken with law enforcement in the event an individual decompensates? Are crisis intervention teams with New York PD also being secured?
So the question is around the police and crisis intervention teams with the police, and I'm not sure that I think that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about. That doesn't have to do with outpatient rights. If someone's in a crisis, that's a different sort of category. So there are different things that apply in that particular category. And it's much more, unfortunately, it becomes much more of a legal situation. I know that there are some training programs out there for the police to learn more about what helps people in crisis and what doesn't help in crisis. And I know that I've heard from a number of that what doesn't help in crisis is being handcuffed and taken to a hospital, like your prison, in the back of the car. So I know that that's not helpful for people. So, and Troy, they have in Rochester developed something called the EBPRT, which stands for the Emotionally Disturbed Persons Response Team, and it seemed to go well in Troy when I was over there, because the police officers were able to come in and spend as much time as they needed to. It wasn't just immediate sort of, I got to deal with the situation and make it go away. The officers were very sensitive and very enthusiastic and really helpful in ameliorating and in sort of not making the crisis worse. So.
Given the current fiscal restraints, are you optimistic that OMH will make this exciting software available to OMH facilities?
Yeah, we're working on it right now. I'm sorry. The question is, given the current fiscal issues, do we think that OMH will make this common ground software available to facilities? And yeah, we're in the process of developing this right now. This is something that's been going on. We've already got the Psyches program, the Psyches program, and forgive me, I don't know what it stands for off the top of my head, but it has to do with medications. We're making a consumer version of it right now, so the money's already committed to that part of it, and then the Pat Vegan Common Ground piece is also part of that. So, and that, honestly, from what I understand, is that although there is a statewide fiscal crisis, from what I understand, OMH did not take a severe cut, but as compared to some of the other agencies, that peer-run services, recovery-oriented services, family services, employment services, I think they actually got a boost, a little bit of a boost. So, so these types of things is, that's what we're supporting. It's what it sounds like from a state's point of view.
Is there any regulatory body that governs or trains advocacy specialists?
So the question is there any regulatory body that that trains advocacy specialists? And I don't. There probably is, but I don't know off the top of my head. I know that NIAFRS does a lot of training. They have like the training collective, and they do a lot of things on life and advocacy, and they have people in each region. I know that the Mental Health Empowerment Project does a lot of training for peers, and I know that the Alliance Empowerment Coalition, the Empowerment, sometimes I get confused with all the different words, but they do a lot of training as well. So, and housing option training. So there's a lot of things in the different regions. What I would suggest is, so I went off and I talked about the three major statewide organizations that I'm aware of, and then I would take a look at, I would contact people in your region. I would contact the affairs specialists. So those are my counterpart in each of the regions. So, and we have that information. I can send that out in our brand new brochure that the lovely Lorraine Washington made for us. She's sitting there next to me. So I'll give you that information.
Psyches stands for Psychotropic Prescribing Practices in New York State. Psychiatric Services and Clinical Knowledge Enhancement System.
Right. Somebody just wrote in to tell us what psyches.
And lastly, we have an announcement that there will be a conference with the Pat Vegan webcast, as that is the same day that there's the homeless conference in New York City, Wellness Integrated Approach to Homeless Service Delivery.
Yeah, I'm told that there's a conflict with the webinar. I'm sorry, there wasn't much time for us to check and do like a save the date thing. So I do apologize. People are going to have to they'll have to make a choice. Certainly, if people have feedback, if they're aware of the Common Ground stuff, and they have feedback that they want to send us, please feel free to send it to the recipient affairs email address there. Happy to share it with Pat. If you know of anyone else that could attend, that would be great. So I do apologize for any comments that are out there. We just had to set it up quickly.
And now New York State is offering criminal justice family advocacy training at 5 regional states across New York. And for more information, go to 518-462-2000.
I'm going to need some help with repeating this.
NAMI New York State
NAMI New York State
is offering criminal justice family advocacy
is offering criminal justice family advocacy training
at 5 regional sites across the state.
at five regional sites across the state.
For more information or to register,
For more information or to register, you can call
462
518-462-2000 and ask for a particular person.
No.
Okay.
That will work.
Alrighty.
Is there any particular guidance or training resources around patient rights in the work for facilities that are opening new transitional residential programs arising from the Commissioner's Transformation Plan?
So the question is, are there any new trainings or what?
Training resources.
Training
Guidance.
resources or guidance
Patient rights
around patient rights
in the works for facilities
in the works for facilities
that are opening new transitional residential programs
that are opening new transitional residential programs
arising from the Commissioner's Transformation
arising from the Commissioner's Transformation Plan. And I don't know. So, but we've got a record of all of these questions, so I'm going to follow up on that.
During the webinar, you spoke about forensic peer specialists employed by OMH. Will the information for that be coming up?
Yeah, in the last webinar, I spoke about forensic peer specialists employed by OMH, and the person is asking information about that will be coming out soon. So I don't remember the specifics about what I spoke about. I know that there was a guidance document around hiring people with criminal background, with a criminal background. You know, obviously you need to have that. If you're going to be a peer specialist, you're going to have some forensics. If you're a forensic peer specialist. I don't have any updated information on that right now, no. But that's something that if we do present it like through the listserv. So I would encourage that you ask her that to join our listserv, and we can put it out on that as soon as it comes out.
Are there training resources for staff, especially around individuals, mental health issues, who have specific cultural needs?
Okay, so the question is, are there trainings for staff around for individuals who have specific cultural needs? As far as I know, that would be the cultural competence training that we do. So what I would suggest is for people to call, you can call up here and ask for Francis Priester, Elatisha Kiernan, or Hector Pavone. And I forget Emmy's, Emmy Murphy. She's the director of diversity planning, I believe is her title. So those will be the people to contact around the cultural competence trainings, and they do a lot of training, and they're actually developing a training too. So they're doing a lot of good stuff.
Peer training is mostly on the job training, although there are training centers, i.e. Howie the Hart Center in the city that does do a basic training. It's more of an announcement.
Okay. So it's an announcement that Howie the Hart Center does have a training. Okay, why don't we do one more question, and then we'll
Contact info for cultural competence.
Okay, so it's asked for contact info for cultural competence. Their bureau brochure here. Here we go. If you want to contact cultural competence, it's 518-408-2026. So that's 518-408-2026 for the Bureau of Cultural Competence. And hopefully people will sign up for the March webinar on cultural competence. They'll be doing the training for an hour and a half next month. So I want to thank everyone today for coming. I really hope that there was something in here that you found useful and helpful. We are recording these, so this will go up on the web. I'm going to send out the documents to people probably early next week. And again, at the end of this webinar, you're going to get a short survey. Please, I really would appreciate it if you could fill it out. We do take those seriously. We do modify our behavior based on feedback that we get. And excuse me. And if you would like a certificate, please just fill out the appropriate boxes, appropriate information, and we'll send that off to you. Yeah, and if people have any further questions or if they think of anything else and they want to share that, please send it to the recipient affairs email address that's on the screen right now. Okay. So again, I want to thank everyone. Just one last little thing around webinars is I know that the technology is limited. I really do appreciate people's patience. I know that people would like to see the presenter. We are working on developing webcast technology to do it pretty cost effectively and seamlessly. We're also working on having the sound integrated into the webinar where we can just do it, so you can just do it through computer speakers and call. So we are trying to address those things. It's going to be a little while before we do that, but I just wanted people to know that we are working on those issues. So although the technology is limited, it's better than what we were doing, which was nothing. So, alrighty, and again, I really appreciate it, and take care, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye now. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Much older.
You think so?
Oh,
Yeah. I think